Yesterday, Sayadaw spoke about the word anupasi, which is part of Satipatthana. It's within the Satipatthana Sutta. And this word anupasi, within anupasana, means repeatedly observing. And what makes up this anupasana? It's combined of atapi sampajano satima, or atapi satima and sampajano. And this atapa is the power, it has the power to burn up the mental defilements. One who practices intensively has this ardent energy, and when we practice intensively, if we did not practice intensively, if there were not effort being made, then the dampness of the kilesas would enter our mind every time of seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, and thinking. And thus the mind becomes unclean, and also it's not active. An example is if we wear damp clothes, they're either water-soaked or sweat-soaked. It doesn't feel good, and the dampness can hurt our health. Similarly, if there's no virya, no ardent energy, then whenever we see, hear, taste, touch, smell, and think, the dampness of kilesas enter our mind stream. Without effort, virya, there's no sati, mindfulness, and therefore there's nothing to block the defilements. There's no protection from them, and thus there's no security. The only time we have relief from this is when we're asleep. So if we apply ardent energy, on the other hand, there's sati. Sati will stick to the object. And laziness, due to the energy, laziness, first of all, and then also greed, hatred, and so on, these can't arise. They can't get into our mind stream. And the mind falls collectedly on the object, so that there's no thinking about what would be good to see, good to taste, smell, touch, and so on. Because we are beings that live in a sensual world, this is where our minds tend to go if the mind is not focused. So due to the application of energy, there's mindfulness, and samadhi occurs. And the jhanic factor of accurate aim is also needed. With accurate aim, the mind doesn't miss the object. And also, it doesn't shrink the way it would if there's laziness. Instead, the mind is fresh and blossoming, open like a flower. If we apply these mental factors, virya, sati, and samadhi, virya and sati, effort in aiming many times, then the mind rubs against the object. It has a direct hit. It contacts what's really there. And then there's no wavering about what the object is. This is called vicikecha in Pali. And every time that we see the object with this quality of rubbing, we're free of that doubt. And one is definite and decisive about what is seen. If we do this again and again, many times, the mind will be clean. If our mind is clean, then knowledge will arise. We'll know the physical and mental components of our experience, Rupa and Nama. First we'll come to know the physical, Rupa, and because it's more obvious. And secondly, we'll come to know Nama. We'll know them as they really are. These two, Nama and Rupa, are flowing like a river in our being, making up our being. If you want to know these, apply ardent effort and accurate aim. Every second without a gap, mindfulness will be there. And if there's mindfulness, sati, then samadhi will arise. The most powerful of all these factors is virya, the effort to note the object. The other qualities will follow our effort. Sati will follow, and samadhi will follow. When virya is there, sati is there. And when the mindfulness sticks to the object, there will be vichara. The rubbing against the object will occur naturally. We don't have to create these qualities specifically. We need to apply effort and accurate aiming. With effort, mindfulness will follow, and the mind will become collected on the object. And eventually, later on, panya, wisdom, will occur. There is a principle that Sayadaw would like to mention, which is that if one observes the object, when it arises, the mind will be clean. This is a fixed principle or a rule. It's definite that the mind will be clean if one observes the object at the very moment it arises. That clean mind, occurring many times, is called bhavana, mental development. Why does it happen? Why? Because of application of energy. There's virya. So that, it can't be denied that virya is involved. And because of accurate aim. So with sati, the kilesas are blocked. The mind is protected from them. This is the power of sati. And this power arises. The mind also doesn't go anywhere. So each of these qualities has their own particular power, and each individual mental quality, the power of it is developed. So then, due to the ardent effort and due to accurate aim, the mind is clean. So when this occurs many, many times, not only is the mind clean, but it's also clear. It's unclouded. And then sampajanya can arise. This is when we can know what is really there, beginning with discerning nama and rupa, the physical and the mental. So only if these mental factors are complete, as Sayadaw mentioned, virya, sati, samadhi, and panya, will anupasana occur. And if this type of, if anupasana, repeated observation, occurs on kaya, which is a physical object, then it's kaya anupasana. If this occurs on vedana, a feeling, then it's vedana anupasana. If one observes thinking, planning, and so on, with this anupasana, it's chitta anupasana. And if one observes the general phenomenon such as seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, this is called dhammanupassana. In summary, the whole body is the big field of observation. And within that, there are small objects to be observed arising anew all the time. And one who possesses the ability to repeatedly observe these is called anupasi. One has to observe like that. When one is observing kaya, physicality, repeatedly and knowing, what is the essence of this repeated observation, anupasana? Atapi sampajano satima. And atapi means that one practices ardently. Only if one does this will anupasana occur. Anupasana does not occur without virya, ardent energy, atapa. So only if that kaya is observed with ardent effort will there be anupasana. But that's not the only quality that's required. If there's effort, virya, then mindfulness will be there. That mindfulness needs to be there every second. It has to be excessive. It has to be exceedingly strong, not just ordinary. And only if sati is there like that will anupasana occur. And is that all that's needed? No, that's not enough yet. The mind has to fall collectively on the object. This is kanika samadhi. And when the mind falls collectively on the rising and the falling, when we are noting that, then this mind with kanika samadhi falls on stiffness sometimes. It falls on stiffness, sometimes on the quality of tension, sometimes on the quality of the movement. When the kanika samadhi falls on these qualities, the mind knows them. So at this point, one knows correctly. One knows what is really there. And one knows fully. And one knows for oneself. Sayadaw explains that this is the meaning of san and janya. And the prefix pa adds the meaning of distinctly knowing. One knows the true nature without any mixing up with the form of the abdomen or the position of its rising and expanding, for example. It also means that one knows in a distinct way, because when one's energy is full, then one sees that instead of one big rising, there's several risings, individual risings occurring. So one sees this distinctly. And one also sees in a way that is superior to the way we can know from books or from thinking about something. We know in a way that is superior. So this sampajanya means to know correctly and distinctly, to know fully and distinctly, to know oneself distinctly, or to know correctly in a superior way, fully in a superior special way, and to know by oneself in a superior special way. So only when we know like this will sampajanya, that is sampajanya. And when we know in this way, when we observe a physical action, we'll see qualities such as hardness and softness, flowing, stickiness, solidity. And when we can see sometimes hardness that is solid or softness that is flowing, hardness that is flowing, one sees these things in combination. One sees that this hardness and softness is the earth element, and this quality of sticking, flowing, and solidity is due to the water element. And one also sees things such as heat, warmth, coolness, cold. These are all aspects of the element of temperature, tejo dhatu. And one will see things such as stiffness, tension, trembling, movement, displacement. These are aspects of the air element, vayo dhatu. So this is knowing what is really there. This occurs because the mind is continuously clean and clear. Only if the mind is clear will one know. Clear means that it's free of defilements. And if we're not free of defilements, then there will be not knowing or knowing wrongly. And Sayadaw will talk about this. In the rising, there's stiffness and tension, movement. These are the characteristics of Vayodhatu, the air element. But that's not all there is. There are other elements that occur together with the air element to make up the rising. There's hardness and firmness of the earth element, Paṭavī-dhātu. Also softness or squishiness, gentleness. This is also the earth element, Paṭavī-dhātu. And for the rising to occur as a unit, it has to be held together by something. There's the cohesive quality of water, making all the particles of the rising join together. Otherwise they would just fly apart. So this Apo-dhātu, the water element, creates cohesion, and it makes things unified. There's also the element of temperature, Tejo-dhātu. There may be coolness, warmth, heat. All these are combined together. These physical elements, Rupa, are combined together, and therefore they're called Kaya, which means in Pali a collection or group. So these elements are distinct one from another. They're not all mixed up. There's a definite boundary between one and the other, and this is called Akasa-dhātu. It's not actually physical itself, but it is there. Okay? It's the separation between these elements. And all these things are combined in this kaya. In the rising, what is predominant and extreme is the air element, Vayodhatu, the qualities, which has the qualities of stiffness, tension, and movement. And it's called rising. And when the abdomen, when we breathe in, the abdomen rises up. It expands. And so we label it rising, and we observe it repeatedly. Because of effort, mindfulness, sati, and collectedness of mind, there's knowledge, which is sampajanya. One needs to know these things within oneself. It's not to think about it. And one, knowing these in oneself, one will see that they coincide. This is according to the Buddha's teaching. At the moment of rising and falling, the stiffness, tension, and movement that we observe are called in Pali aramana, or object. This is the object. And our observation is called aramanika, that which takes an object. So the physical aspects that we observe, the stiffness, tension, movement, these are rupa. And the observation, knowing these, is mental, nama. So in the moment of noting the rising and falling, there's just these two. The rupa, the physical part, which is what we observe. It doesn't know anything. It's what is being observed. And the observation of it, knowing it, which is nama. There's just these two things, object and knowing mind, occurring in a pair. When there's virya, sati, and samadhi, and the mind becomes clean and clear, then we discern nama and rupa, the mental and physical. The rupa, physical, is something separate. The nama is also separate. So one sees these occurring as a pair very clearly, the physical and the knowing of it. So the object and the aramana and the aramanika, the object and the observation of it. This knowing of object and that which watches the object, knowing of rupa and nama, comes about because of our observation. And we know because we apply effort. Due to the effort, mindfulness arises and there's collectedness of mind. So yogis have to understand this. This rising and falling, this stiffness, tension, and movement isn't there permanently. The tension occurs in its moment and passes away. Falling, movement occurs, and then it finishes, passes away. The mind that knows this also disappears. These phenomena, these dhammas, are not permanent. These dhammas are definitely anicca. This is what we call these. And due to seeing clearly nama and rupa, the physical and the mental, when we observe rupa and see stiffness, tension, or movement, in that stiffness, tension, or movement, is there a person? Is there a man? No, there's no man in that. Is there a woman there? No. Is there any self there? No. This physical Dhamma, this Rupa, dies as soon as it is born. And the mind which observes it also arises and then passes away immediately. So it becomes evident that there's no such thing as a self. What is there? There's this stiffness, tension, movement, which is vayodhatu. And knowing this is mind. It's not a person, it's just the quality of knowing. It's not a living being. So there's no jiva atta, no individual self. If one knows specifically, clearly, that there is just the physical and the mental occurring, just rupa and nama, this is knowing correctly. Sayadaw would like to make this point more clear by giving an example. And the example is that when someone is noting very respectfully and carefully, when they observe going into a sitting posture from standing up, that person can see that there's many, many individual physical occurrences happening in a stream. And one also sees that if there's no intention to sit down, that sitting down process will not happen. It's initiated by this intention to sit down. Only then does the stiffness and movement and heaviness and the falling down of the body occur. These are just a series of rupa, just a series of physicality. And the intentions, multiple intentions to sit, are just a series of mind moments, just a series of mentality. or nama. There's just these two, and these are things that we can know when we observe the sitting down process respectfully and carefully. When electricity is a phenomena that does not occur by itself. The flow of electricity is initiated by turning on a switch, and it flows through a wire, the electrical current, and the light goes on. We see that there's a light going on. So the result is this, the light going on. The light going on is physical, and there's the electricity flowing and the light being on at the same time. So this happens because of turning on the switch. Without turning on the switch, the light won't light up. And in our body, it's similar. When we go from a standing to a sitting process, the intention to sit is what makes the individual parts of our body move. It's like the electricity causing the light to become light. And if we know respectfully, we'll see that there's a series of nama, mentality, and a series of rupa that are happening together. These two streams happening together as we gradually sit down. There's just these two. There's no person involved. There's no man, no woman. There's no soul involved in this. There's just knowing this stream of rupa and nama occurring. And we know this correctly through our observation. We don't know it through reading a book or from reflecting on what we've read. And we also don't know it due to jhanic powers, due to concentration and creating absorptions. It is what we know due to our effort to observe the arising object, due to having firm mindfulness and the mind falling collectedly on the object. In this example, the mental phenomena is like the electricity that flows, and the movement that results is like the light that goes on due to the electricity. And this is evident when we practice. When one sits down carefully, observing carefully, one sees that nama and rupa, mental and physical, occur in pairs. And this is knowing correctly. When one sits, if one sits down quickly, without making any noting, without trying to observe in detail, Sayadaw makes no guarantee that you will come to see like this. And without effort to observe the object of the sitting down process, there won't be mindfulness, and thus there will not be samadhi, collectedness of mind. In this case, Sayadaw makes no guarantee that one will come to see like this. But every time one sits down, if one does so slowly and carefully, as if one is a sick person, going inch by inch, try to observe like that. Try to note with determination to catch the whole process. And if we do, we'll see that there's just rupa and nama. There's not a person. There's not a being in there. What arises is just mind and body. And it's similar with standing up, lifting, moving, and placing, and so on. And Sayadaw tomorrow is going to give some further examples. The example of how a fan works. an electric fan. It works with a battery or with other source of electricity. And due to the electricity going through the wire, there's movement that's caused. And another example is what happens when we eat. In each morsel of food, there are many individual tastes: sweet, sour, bitter, hot, bland, salty. And if we chew our food carefully and see, we'll come to know these individual tastes. Everything that we do has a similar taste. Everything that we do, Nama and Rupa that we can observe, is like the taste in food. It's like flavors. Sorry, what did I write? And just like when we chew the food carefully, taste will become evident. So too, if we want to know the Nama and Rupa that occur in us, then we need to apply aim and effort, accurate aim and effort, and then we'll know this stream of physical and mental phenomena that make up our being. Please try like this, and if you do so, in a matter of days you will see how this happens. But if there's no effort to observe the object, or if there's not a meticulous application of one's energy, or if one takes breaks, then one won't come to know like this, no matter how long one practices. These instructions that Sayadaw is giving are the instructions of the Buddha, and they are very specific. So please follow them exactly. That's all for today.